This next guy though is sex appeal like crazy. I mean, whether it's like running down somebody from 30 yards behind to just like looking like he's chiseled out of granite to having like hooker orgies. Like this is your guy. Right?
This is the playboy at the wide receiver position. I mean, you could carve a picture of any wide receiver and say, that's the one I want on my team. DK Metcalf is the body, the speed. He's got it all as a physical specimen.
Awesome.
He's just, it's you go into battle with, I know it doesn't actually hold weight, but that idea of like the fantasy locker room of coming out the bus, when your opponent sees DK Metcalf coming out the bus to face him, there's got to be some trembling in the bumhole for your opponent. Like they're going to be scared because this guy is an absolute animal, absolute monster that can just wreck a week at any point. Unfortunately, we didn't see a ton of that last year. Geno Smith was, ends up taking over. He was the top-rated deep passer, most deep touchdowns in the league, and it still didn't mean a huge season for DK Metcalf. So as much as he looks so damn intimidating, there's not as much, bite to the bark right now with DK Metcalf. He finished with 11th in targets, 9th in air yards, second in red zone targets, and still was just the wide receiver 22 in fantasy points per game, given all that great usage. He only had his best game of the year was 26.7 points. We've seen DK smash that in past years. It is still DK Metcalf.
Why did it go down like this? Why
I don't know. Geno played really well, like we said, especially in the type of balls that DK Metcalf should be great at. He was only a top 12 receiver in 18% of his games, so a lot of those spikes were missing. They did get a lot. They've always been run heavy under Pete Carroll, and that's probably going to continue with the drafting of Zach Charbonnet, and they draft JSN, one of the best slot weapons to come out in the last 5 years. So I think the targets go down. Even still, it is DK Metcalf, and that's why he's still in my top 15. You just look no further than that playoff game last year when they needed some points. They were chucking it to him. 10 catches, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns on 13 targets. It shows the guy can still ball. It just raises that question. Why wasn't this happening more consistently last year? And now he's facing higher target competition. It's tough. You want DK. It's tough.
He's one of these guys. You at least I can only speak for myself because I've had him also before and have when he really blew up. I took a chance on him and I was so happy. So he's just a guy you want to pull for. He's a guy that if I draft him, I'm going to be super, super excited that I drafted him. And that enthusiasm may wane as the season goes on and maybe the production's not there. But like you said, I'm going to feel awesome going into battle with him, at least.
You always feel good leaving the bus with him. But just keep in mind, he's only had one season above the top 20 in points per game.
I know. I know.
It's something to keep in mind is as good as he is rolling off the bus and the fear he's striking your opponent.
He's like a new car that you see coming off the lot. And you're just like, I want to drive that thing.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, this next guy also just makes you feel kind of good too. But I see why he's this low. Maybe he's too high.
He's a tricky evaluation, Deebo Samuel is. And part of me just wants to keep bumping him up, but then I have to rein myself back in. On the positive front, even though he had a real dud last year, you look across the last 2 seasons, he's number 4th right now in terms of top 10 wide receiver finishes. 38% of his games across the last 2 years have been top 10. And that's with a horrendous 2022 season. In fact, Deebo Samuel himself saying he was disgusted with his film. He's training much harder. He had that contract distraction, and he says he's all back in this offseason. He sat with Kyle Shanahan, who just kind of ripped him a new one, and he said, I will never put tape that bad out again. And he's the type of guy I believe. He's a prideful guy. He's a strong guy. I'm into Deebo Samuel having himself a nice rebound. Now, will he bounce back to the wide receiver 3 of 2021? What a brilliant campaign. 21.4 fantasy points per game. I don't know if he bounces up to that level. And one of the big reasons is Christian McCaffrey's now here. His carries have to be going down a significant amount, right, Wolf? Well, you actually look at it.
Actually, no, not the carry.
It was surprising last year. So 2021, he averaged 3.6 attempts per game. Insanely efficient as a running back. And maybe where they will go down is in the red zone. That's where Deebo was a monster in 2021, getting carries in the red zone. But he actually averaged more carries per game last year with McCaffrey in the lineup, 3.4 yards per carry than when McCaffrey wasn't, or 3.4 carries per game rather, in the games where McCaffrey was there versus the games with McCaffrey not there. So not quite on the level of 2021, but 0.2 carries less. I mean, he was right there in terms of the volume he was getting. It just wasn't as efficient. It wasn't the Deebo that we saw in 2021. But if he's trained and get back there, great. And the last main point with him is Brock Purdy. When they were on the field together, Deebo did lead this team in target share, so it would be a big boost to him if Purdy is the guy instead of Trey Lance. So I definitely could buy into a big Deebo rebound. I've always loved the player. He's so fun to watch. And I see when he tells me he's going to bounce back, he's the type of guy I believe.
He's another guy you just feel really good, like drafted. You're just like, I got Deebo.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it works out. Christian Watson, this is a guy, that I raised a little bit of an eyebrow initially. I mean, we were doing, projection shows. We've been doing this for a while now. And I questioned how much you love Christian Watson. I thought you actually made a pretty good case where I've cooled to my animosity towards him being this high. So why don't you give the real quick elevator pitch on Christian Watson?
Something that blows my mind, this stat. He was 67th in targets, never had more than 8 targets in a single game, and still somehow finishes the wide receiver 4 in total touchdowns. That's how damn explosive and how big of a game record this guy is. If he could even get to the top 25 in targets, we could see a 15 to 18 touchdown season.
If he hadn't dropped that one, he probably doesn't get frozen out for like 6 games or 8 games, and the guy's probably wide receiver 1 in touchdowns.
Exactly. And a lot of people coming at it, Christian Watson without Rodgers, that has to be a significant downgrade, right, to Jordan Love? Well, maybe, yes, in terms of arm talent, maybe, but in terms of that risk of being frozen out, there was that stretch I alluded to in our earlier discussion that he had 4 straight weeks where he finished in the top 10 receivers, finished only behind Adams and Amon-Ra St. Brown from week 10 to week 13. So those 4 games, monster. I had him in fantasy. He saved my season, carried me into the playoffs, but then he disappeared because he did one mistake. Rodgers froze him out, and that's not going to happen with Jordan Love. He doesn't have that type of presence.
Love is going to be craving that relationship with somebody. He needs somebody to lean on.
And they've been, all the talk right now is they've been doing that, him and Watson after practice all the time in OTAs. We already had LaFleur come out and say the way we've expanded his route tree, you can't say enough about how much better he is coming in here. So big fan. I think I just lost power. Can you hear me still?
I can see. Yes, I can.
My light just went out. But
kind of looks like a hostage video, but yes.
All right, now we're back. It was just a quick little power outage there, but it is. Yeah, it is. But yeah, Christian Watson, love the player, love how damn efficient he was, despite being only the wide receiver 67 in targets, to score the 4th most TDs, have those type of blowups. I just expect a much more consistent level of volume and an expanded route tree. Everything to me is pointing upwards for Christian Watson. I'm all in on this guy this year.
Everything pointing upwards. Everything. All right.
What'd you say?
I said everything pointing upwards. Everything.
Yes. Including my pants.
Right. I was trying to be subtle about it.
I have no subtlety.
Number 18 on the list, a guy we've been in love with for a long time. DeAndre Hopkins obviously missed, the first half of the season basically last year because he was juicing, evidently, and he came back strong, but then really petered out, huh?
Yeah, a lot of that did have Kyler Murray going down. Kind of sucked in that sense, but walks right into 22.3, 35.9, 4 out of his first 5 games, top 12 in fantasy points, 77% of his games on the year were top 24, was the wide receiver 9 in points per game. The guy could still get it done. I know he's lost a step in terms of his speed, but he never really was the main element of his game anyway. That's the contested catches, the contortions. He can still do it all. And all the earlier rumblings, it's tough to speculate too much what his value will be. If he goes to the Titans, he's going to plummet. Just hideous landing spot. But the early speculation is the Pats are an early favorite to land him. One, love it as a Patriots fan.
Sure.
Give me DeAndre Hopkins all day. But even better for his fantasy value, he's played with Bill O'Brien before, and I know they had their beef, but when they were on the field together, 192, 151, 174, 163, 150, and 160 targets. He never hurt for volume. I think he would get absolutely peppered given Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton, Jacoby Myers is now gone too. They've got nobody else there. They absolutely need a true bona fide wide receiver 1. And Hopkins, for all the faults that maybe he has lost a step or two, he can be a target hog. He had 6 of his 9 games with 11 plus targets, multiple 14, 13 target days. The guy can still get it done. So until he lands somewhere, we can't speculate too much, but assuming it's the Patriots, I would love that spot. Would probably be an upgrade for him on these rankings list. I still believe in Hopkins as a player, no doubt about it.
All right, rounding out the tier, Amari Cooper. not a sexy pick, but I get why you got him in this tier.
Yeah, it's tricky because playing with Brissett, he was a beast. Actually, significantly sexier with Brissett, which doesn't make sense to you. You think the guy you blow all this money on should elevate the entire offense, but we talked about it. Nick Chubb took a downgrade with Deshaun Watson, and Amari Cooper took a huge downgrade with him. And the question is why? And of course, it's not based on what he did last year. Watson automatically translates this year. In fact, you better hope as a Browns fan out there that this is not the case and Watson will return to those top 5 levels. If that's the case, then Cooper could have another great season. But before Watson took over, 45% of his games were top 12, multiple booms with Jacoby Brissett. Now, the floor was low, 1.9, 4.7, 6.2, but plenty of those booms in there too. That's what is tricky about Cooper. That's what makes him a significantly better best ball prospect. So he's not absolutely burning you when he sucks. And then only, he can win you weeks, but he won't lose you weeks in best ball when you have to deal with that. You don't have to deal with that sit starts. He was a beast, though. He had multiple, 5 of his top 12 games. He had 6 top 12 games. 5 of them came with Brissett at QB, only 1 of them with Watson. They played 6 games together, Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper. He had single-digit points in 4 of those games, only 1 top 12 game. The rest were outside the top 30. Most were outside the top 50. You also mix in Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, some new mouths to feed. So if he's going to maintain that top 15 finish that he had last year, he's going to rely on Watson getting significantly better. And that's not a bet I'm fully confident in making. I think he has to be better. He can't be worse than he was last year. But will we ever see the Deshaun Watson that was an absolute monster that warranted the contract he got? No way, in my opinion.
Anyway, I don't think
so I worry. I worry that there's too many mouths here and that these two just didn't ever get on the same page. I'm a little bit lower on Amari Cooper than the consensus right now. He's another guy. He goes ahead of Christian Watson, right around Deebo Samuel. I'll never go Amari Cooper over those two. So right now, I have very, very little exposure to Amari Cooper.
There's 1 or 2 guys below him I actually might like more than him. That takes us to tier 5, and unfortunately, I got to run.
I figured we might.
First 4 tiers. That was a lot of fun, man. I'm looking forward to hearing your tier 5 spiel. And I should be back tomorrow with the Wolf. We're doing tight ends.
Yeah, tight ends, which isn't exciting as receivers, but we'll burn through our top
20. It'll be a quick one. We can have a lot of friendly banter,
I was thinking maybe we could even sneak in a big best ball if we get through the tight ends fast enough.
I'll do it. Yeah.
We will see. Indeed, but truth, this is a blast as always. I love chopping it up with you. So
yeah, it was fun. Everybody that's here, thanks for watching. Give us a like on my way out. I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. All righty. Thanks again to the Truth. Always a great time hosting with him. And as he said on his way out, that thumbs up button is so greatly helpful as we move into our final tier. We'll cover tonight 6 quick names I wanted to hit for you guys. I'll make sure to mow through them so we can get to all your questions. Hit that mailbag now, Wolfpack, because I'm going to get to them all. Let me know anything, whether it's a rookie draft coming up, a keeper league question, or you just want to say hello. Hit those comments. Let me know how it's going. Hit that thumbs up. And if you're new around here, that sub button is so greatly appreciated. I should say, too, with this Amari Cooper tier, one common team build I am finding with myself, especially if I'm at the end of round 1, I often do get Eckler and then Saquon sitting there, and we've seen ASB, Garrett Wilson, and CeeDee Lamb come off the board. I often do find myself going Saquon, Eckler, and so these guys I'm calling these elite wide receiver 2s oftentimes do end up being my receiver 1. I just make sure I take 2 of them, so I end up with like a Deebo Samuel, Christian Watson pairing. I've had a lot of St. Brown. I'm talking about Eckler, Saquon, and then Christian Watson, DeAndre Hopkins builds. That's been a very frequent roster of mine, and I love it every time. But moving forward to my final tier we'll cover today, the quality wide receiver 2s, but more so the elite wide receiver 3s. That's where I'd really like to have them. And one guy that's going to be a lot higher for most people is Calvin Ridley. He's my wide receiver 20. He's about wide receiver 14, 15 on ECR. Now, I'm one of the biggest fans of Ridley as the player. I had him his breakout year. I went all in on him the next year. I love the guy. And as it's already shown in Jaguars camp, he's a different level when he's on the field. That when he's on the field is the big thing, when he's healthy and when his mind is right. And yes, I expect that to be the case. I would love to see it with Trevor Lawrence and this upstarting Jaguars. It's a great fit. I think he could be a monster there. But there's still some big question marks for him to be going above the Deebos, above the Christian Watsons. And that's what's happening in drafts right now. I don't buy into it. Moreover, Doug Peterson, he always loves to spread the wealth. There's tons of those stats about how no Eagles ever had 1,000-yard seasons under him. And yeah, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, they both had good seasons last year, but it was pretty boom or bust for those guys, alternating big games. And those are two good mouths to contend with. Never mind, they bring back Evan Ingram as well. So a lot of mouths here, a good aerial pie from Trevor Lawrence, but I don't know that Calvin Ridley is that much above Christian Kirk and what their final target share will be. So give me the guy going, 2 rounds later than him. It's just not a guy I'm ending up with right now, despite loving the talent. I often am falling to round 5 right now in many drafts. DJ Moore. I think this is going to be not quite the level of A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, but I also don't think it's going to be overly far off. They were, Fields and DJ Moore so far, immediate best friends according to beat writers, according to their teammates. They are stunned with how immediate this chemistry has been and how often number 1 looks for number 2. And just love that narrative. 1 and 2 connecting again. How many times can you hear the announcers making that comment? But every time, if you read any Bills reporter, highlight of the day, DJ Moore plucking a long Justin Fields pass out of the air between 2 defenders, 3rd down drills. Every single time it's going to DJ Moore. 2-minute offense, DJ Moore churning down the field. Red zone drills, DJ Moore, toe tapper. It's all DJ Moore in every single level of the field. And I do think he is that capable of a wide receiver. He's just been dealt the ultimate shit hand of quarterbacks. So I am a big fan of DJ Moore. I love the rapport we're building here. It has a very similar, again, that best friend type of vibe that you want to feed all day, early and often. I know it's a run-heavy scheme. It's going to be no team ran the ball as a total more than the Bears last year, and it will still be that way. I understand. But when they're throwing, I think it's going to be DJ Moore, and then a little bit more DJ Moore. So I'm a big fan of him at his price right now. Although these 2 receivers, DJ Moore versus Keenan Allen, I am constantly flip-flopping. And as I often do for a tiebreaker, I side with the youth, and that's certainly on DJ Moore's side. But when Keenan Allen was out there last year, man, he was as good as ever. The wide receiver 8 in fantasy points per game once he finally did return from injury. And yes, they added Quentin Johnson. To me, that's a much bigger hit to Mike Williams. Similar style of play, similar bodies, both outside guys. I think Keenan in that slot role will remain nice, steady, consistent, as he has been for years. Never mind you mixing Kellen Moore, who I think will bring in an even more explosive passing attack, so a better aerial pie even with more mouths to feed here. Keenan Allen, when he came back, top 24 in a whopping 88% of his games. Just 1 of his 8 did he fall outside the top 12, or top 24 rather, and he still put up 12 fantasy points in that game. He was an absolute monster. Every level of consistency you could ask for. It's just a matter of health. He is at that age cliff where injuries are going to become a thing. So as long as he's on the field, you have 0 question marks, but the only reason he's a little lower is you question how often he's going to be available. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.